Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, November the 2nd. We got a little 5-game Tuesday slate. As always, guys, we're going to go game by game. We're going to talk through each game on the slate, break down each team, just kind of give you guys my early thoughts, what does stand out to me looking at this slate on Monday night. And then as we do go through each game, we'll just kind of build out an early core, just a couple plays, maybe 4 or 5 plays that stand out to me at first look. As always, guys, with a sport like NBA, there's constant news coming out throughout the day. We saw yesterday Tobias Harris getting ruled out, 20, 30 minutes before the game started. Joel Embiid getting ruled out during the afternoon. Like, there's always news coming out during the day. The plays and the kind of picks that I give out in this video, they're not guaranteed to be in my lineup. I'm always updating things. I'm always changing stuff with a sport like NBA. I do provide a lot more updated content. If you do want to check that out, it's linked down below in the description. I have a lot of updated stuff over on Patreon. You can get access to my core plays, my updated core plays. You can get access to my rankings. You can get access to our Discord chat as well. That is all available on Patreon, so if you want to check that out, it's linked down below in the description. But before we get started with the breakdown, guys, please do hit that like button. Appreciate all the likes. As always, hit the subscribe button as well if you are new here. And check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. They're more of a player prop-based DFS site. I'm sure most of you, have already heard about PrizePicks, but for those of you that have not checked them out yet and you would like to, be sure when you sign up for PrizePicks, you use promo code NOAH. They will match your first deposit up to $100 when you sign up with my promo code. And you can take a look at what PrizePicks has to offer. They have, just about every sport you can imagine. They have some projections already up for Tuesday's slate. Not a ton of projections right now, but as you can see, they have point projections, rebound projections, assists, three-pointers made. And then, early Tuesday morning, they will post fantasy point projections as well for each player. You basically just pick the over or the under on a player's projection. And, with a sport like NBA, there is definitely a big edge over on PrizePicks, because if you were quick, you could have got, like, whenever Joel Embiid got ruled out or whenever Tobias Harris got ruled out, you could have been, you could have bet the over on Tyrese Maxey fantasy points, Seth Curry fantasy points. Like, I think they had Curry projected for, like, 24 fantasy points, and he went way over that. There's definitely an edge in NBA, just betting the over on players that benefit whenever someone gets ruled out. And, with the NBA, players are getting ruled out all the time, almost every day. Especially later in the season, you'll see players just get ruled out right before the game starts. You'll see guys resting just randomly. So definitely check out PrizePicks. In NBA, there's a lot of money to be made. There's definitely a big edge if you pay attention to the news. If you guys do want to sign up for PrizePicks, you want to check them out, be sure, like I said, use promo code NOAH, and they will match your first deposit up to $100 when you do sign up with my code. But yeah, guys, let's take a look at Tuesday's 5-game slate. We'll start off with the first game of the night, the Bucks and the Pistons. Now, overall, this is not a game that you would think would be that appealing, but with how this slate is shaking out, with how thin Milwaukee is for today, they're definitely a team that's going to garner a lot of attention. You're going to see a lot of Bucks get a lot of ownership today. And it's hard not to go there. Half the damn team is out. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, Dante DiVincenzo are all already ruled out for today. I believe Grayson Allen and Rodney Hood are both probable, so they're expected to play. But we've still got 4 starters basically out for Milwaukee today. Obviously, the big ones being Middleton and Drew. So without Middleton and Drew and Brolo and DiVincenzo, Giannis is just going to have to do all the heavy lifting. We had a scenario last game against Utah where all these guys were out, and Giannis did not have the greatest game, only 51 DK points in 35 minutes, but, that was a much tougher matchup against the Jazz. Obviously here against the Pistons, Giannis could absolutely go nuts tonight. Like, the Pistons are going to have no answer for Giannis, whether it's Isaiah Stewart, Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey, Kelly Olynyk. Like, none of these guys are going to stop Giannis. He's a fantastic play today. His price tag did jump up a ton on DraftKings. He's $11,600, but he's still my favorite stud on the slate. He's the guy that I have the most confidence in. He's the guy that I think has the biggest ceiling. And with how much value we have from this Milwaukee team, there's a lot of cheap plays you can play. It's pretty easy to build around Giannis if you want to go that route. And I think at first look, Giannis is probably the guy I'm going to want to try and build around today. So like him a ton on both sides. And then a lot of these other Bucks we can look to. Grayson Allen, 4,800. Not as thrilled about him on DraftKings at this price point. I think Grayson Allen is still playable. He did play 31 minutes last game, got up 14 shots, took 10 3-pointers. I think he'll see probably a few more shots coming his way without Drew and without Middleton. Grayson Allen's never been a great point-per-minute player, but with all these high-usage players out, especially Drew and Middleton out, there's going to be more opportunity for Grayson Allen. I think at 4,800, he's definitely in play on DraftKings. I like him a lot on Yahoo, though. He's a pretty cheap over there, only $13 at the shooting guard position. I think if you're looking for a cheap shooting guard, he would probably be the first guy that I would be looking to. Definitely like Allen a good amount on Yahoo. And then Pat Connaughton, he did start last game. Did not play that well, but the minutes were there. He played 29 minutes. He probably, I think most nights he's going to play more than that. Normally Connaughton, especially with all these guys out, would play like 32 to 34 minutes. I think most projection sites, when it was announced that he was starting last game, had him projected for around 32 minutes. So I'm expecting a little more than 29 minutes from Connaughton here. Good matchup. Price tag's relatively low. Without Drew, without Middleton, there's going to be more usage to go around. Obviously, Giannis is going to dominate the usage, but there's still going to be opportunity for guys like Pat Connaughton, Jordan Nwora, Grayson Allen, the rest of these guys. So I think they're all in play. 4,600. I think Connaughton's one of my favorite values right now from this Milwaukee team. I do like him on both sides. He is very cheap on Yahoo as well. Small forward, only $12. He's another value that I think we can go to from the Bucks here. And then, a lot of these other guys we're going to talk about. So Bobby Portis, 4,400. He's only played 2 games since coming back from his injury. His minutes have slowly creeped up each game. Played 15 minutes in his first game against Minnesota, and then last game against Utah, played 19 minutes. I'm expecting a few more minutes from Bobby Portis here. I think he plays probably 22 to 24 minutes. At 4,400, we know Bobby Portis is a very productive player when he gets minutes. He doesn't need to play 36 minutes to pay off this price tag. He can get there in 23, 24 minutes. I think Bobby Portis is a really good value as well. And, it's always a little bit riskier to play guys when they're on a minutes limit. But when it's a guy like Bobby Portis, who is a fantasy point per minute player, last year, Bobby Portis played 305 minutes with Drew, Brolo, and Middleton off the floor. He averaged 1.3 fantasy points per minute. So even if he plays like 22 minutes, he still probably projects for 27, 28 DraftKings points, which is going to make him a very strong value at only 4,400 on DraftKings. And he's minimum salary on Yahoo. It sucks that he's a center over there. I would prefer to be able to roster him at power forward, but at minimum salary $10, Bobby Portis I think is also a strong value, and it wouldn't be surprising if they move him into the starting lineup. We're going to have to keep an eye on the starting lineup. Last game they started George Hill, Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Giannis, and Thanasis. Maybe Thanasis goes to the bench today and they move Bobby Portis in. But for now, I'm just going to assume they keep the same starting lineup. But if Bobby Portis were to start, that would just make him an even better value play. I would definitely feel better about his minutes if he was starting. And then Jordan Nwora, 4,500. He's a pretty high usage player. He's a guy that when he's on the floor, he can be productive. He played 24 minutes last game. He was not very productive at all, but I still think at 4,500, he is in play for value. Just with all these guys out, there's going to be more opportunity for Nwora. And last season, he played 201 minutes with Drew, Brolo, Middleton off the floor. Averaged 1.2 fantasy points per minute, 28.8% usage rate for Jordan Nwora. Had the second highest usage rate on the team behind Giannis. When all of those 3 guys were off the floor. So Nwora at 4,500 still in play for me. George Hill doesn't offer a ton of upside, but he's going to get the minutes. He's played at least 30 minutes in 3 straight games. He gives you a pretty safe floor. He's put up at least 20 DraftKings points. Basically, since he moved into the starting lineup, he's put up at least 20 DK points in every game he started. Again, he doesn't really offer much of a ceiling, but at 3,800, if you get 25 DraftKings points from George Hill today, he's going to be a pretty good value. I think he's a safe value. I don't know if he offers a ton of upside, but George Hill is definitely in play for me. And then lastly, Thanasis, 3,100. Thanasis did start last game, played 32 minutes, and he was pretty productive, had 31 DK points. Thanasis has always been pretty productive when he does get minutes. Last season, he averaged 0.79 fantasy points per minute in 250 minutes with all these guys off the floor. But we've seen, Thanasis can put up close to a fantasy point per minute when he does get playing time. Now, obviously, playing alongside Giannis is not great because Giannis is such a high usage player. I don't know if he's going to be as productive alongside Giannis, but given that he played 32 minutes last game, I think it's pretty reasonable to project him for at least like mid to high 20s minutes and at almost minimum salary 3,100. If Thanasis starts again, he's a value play that I do like quite a bit on DraftKings, and he's cheap on Yahoo too. You could definitely play him over there, but yeah, man, there's a lot to like from this Bucks team with just how short-handed they are. You can literally play. Obviously you're not going to play like $5 or $6 all in one lineup, but I think playing $4 on the slate is fine for now. We'll have to wait and see, if we get any other value as the day goes on. But Connaughton, Giannis, Portis, Thanasis, Grayson Allen, Jordan Nwora, George Hill, I think all 7 of those guys are in play. I don't think I'd be playing anyone else, but those 7 guys are for sure going to be in my player pool. And if I was playing like 150 lineups, I would definitely have exposure to all 7 of those guys, I would think. But we can go ahead and move on to the Detroit side now. Not as much to like on Detroit here. We will need to keep an eye on the status of Sadiq Bey, though. He's probable. He's expected to play, but just keep an eye on that. I assume he plays, though. But when it comes to this Pistons team, again, there's not too much to like here. Everyone on the Pistons, for the most part, feels appropriately priced. Kelly Olynyk at 5,700 would probably be my favorite play from the Pistons. His minutes lately, even though he's come off the bench, he's still been getting around mid to high 20s minutes. We know Kelly Olynyk can be very productive when he does get minutes. He's, a fantasy point per minute player. A lot of times he'll average over a fantasy point per minute. Don't mind him at 5,700. Josh Jackson's been playing really well, but, he came off the bench last game, only played 25 minutes. If he comes off the bench again, it's a little bit riskier. They started Hamidou Diallo last game. Hamidou Diallo only played 20 minutes. If Hamidou Diallo starts again, maybe we could go to him for value, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. Jackson, though, I would like a lot if he starts, but I'm assuming he just comes off the bench again. Cade Cunningham, though, I do want to mention just because he is only 3,600 on DraftKings. And in his first NBA game, I would say he was on a minutes limit. He only played 19 minutes. He's had a couple days to rest up, though. I don't know if he's going to be on a minutes limit again today. I would assume he's going to be on a minutes limit, but I'd assume he plays more than 19 minutes. So if we can get clarity that Cade Cunningham's going to play like maybe 25, 26 minutes, at 3,600, he will be a really good value play. I do expect Cade Cunningham to be pretty productive. I expect him to average around a fantasy point per minute this season. He should be a high usage player on this Pistons team just because, they don't really have much offensive scoring. Cunningham obviously didn't do that well last game, but he shot the ball terribly. 12% from the field, 0 for 5 from 3. He just couldn't make a shot. He's going to obviously shoot better than that, probably here. So at 3,600, Cade Cunningham, depending on what his minutes limit is, depending on what it is, I think he might be my favorite play from Detroit if there is no, heavy minutes limit. I think if he's limited to like 20, 22 minutes, probably not going to go there. But if he can get like 24, 25 minutes, then I think he becomes a pretty solid value at 3,600. But that does it for this game. We'll move on to the next one, talk about Miami and Dallas. So on Miami today, big news to keep an eye on is the status of Bam Adebayo, currently questionable. Did not play last game. We saw Dwayne Dedmon move into the starting lineup, and then we saw guys like Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler all get increased opportunity. Both a lot of those guys saw increased usage. If Bam plays today, I don't think there's too much I really like from Miami. Everyone on this team for the most part feels priced about right. I think Jimmy Butler you could still play. I think Bam, if he does play, is someone you could go to as well because obviously those guys have upside. But I'm kind of off of Lowry and Hero if Bam is in. But in a scenario where Bam gets ruled out, then I like Jimmy Butler a ton. Jimmy Butler would be one of my favorite pay-up options right behind Giannis. Kyle Lowry, I think, would be in play as well. He was pretty low owned last slate on DraftKings. I think, on this slate, maybe he'll get some ownership because he did play really well last game without Bam Adebayo. And then Tyler Hero at 6,900 would definitely be in play as well. I would probably prefer like Lowry just straight up over him, but I think Hero would be viable. And then Dwayne Dedmon would be a very good value. He got into foul trouble last game, only played 17 minutes, but he was still productive in that time. He almost had a double-double in only 17 minutes, still put up 23 DraftKings points even though he was in foul trouble. If Bam is out again and Dedmon starts, Dedmon's going to be a top value play for me at only 3,800. So really going to have to keep an eye on this Bam news. Obviously, it impacts a ton. For now, I'm probably just going to be avoiding Miami for the most part if Bam plays. But if Bam gets ruled out, then we can look to guys like Jimmy, Lowry, Hero, and obviously Dedmon for value. But on the other side, looking at the Mavs, Luka, 11,100. I like him a lot as a pay-up option as well. Basically, any slate Luka's on, he's going to be a top option for me. And especially on this slate where we do have a decent amount of value already, and we could get even more value if Bam were to get ruled out. You could definitely play Luka and Giannis together. At least right now, it seems like it's pretty possible. So I think that might be kind of the way I go. Now, this is a first look. Obviously, if you want my full updated core plays and all my updated thoughts, that'll be on Patreon. But for now, I think, going Luka Giannis is something we can do because if you plug Luka in on Yahoo, you still got $20 left per player for your last 3 spots. If you plug Luka in on DraftKings, you still got over $5K left per player for your last 3 spots. So you can definitely make it work. The matchup against Miami may not be ideal, but we know Luka has massive upside. We know he's going to give you a pretty high floor as well. I know he's had some relatively disappointing games this season, but for the most part, Luka's going to put up 45, 50 DraftKings points most nights, and he has a 55, 60-plus point ceiling. He can go for 60-plus any night. Against Miami, is it likely that he puts up 60-plus? Maybe not, but he's still a top stud for me. He's definitely right up there with Giannis in terms of the best pay-up options. And obviously, Luka on this slate will come in a lot lower owned than Giannis if I had to guess. But Porzingis is questionable from Dallas. This is going to be something we have to keep an eye on. He's missed their last 2 or 3 games, I do believe. For now, I'm going to assume just Porzingis plays. If he plays, I don't have that much interest in him. He hasn't really looked great this year when he's been healthy. He did have that one good game against Toronto, but ever since then, just hasn't looked great. It's 7,800. He feels priced about right if he's in. If Porzingis plays, I'm not going to be going to guys like Brunson and Tim Hardaway because they've all been priced up for when Porzingis was out. If Porzingis were to remain out, though, you could look to some of these guys, but none of them really stand out at their price tags. I think Dorian Finney-Smith at 4,800 would be viable. He's going to play big minutes most nights. He's going to play probably 30-plus minutes on a nightly basis. Without Porzingis, his production should increase a little bit. He should be a little bit more productive on a point-per-minute basis. Plus, Maxi Kleber is also out, so without Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith should just play, really should play as many minutes as he can handle. Maybe Dwight Powell we could go to. I think if Porzingis is out, along with Kleber, who's out right now, if we get a scenario where both Porzingis and Kleber are out, they're going to be really thin in the front court. They're not going to have a ton of bigs they can go to. I think Dwight Powell would play pretty big minutes, and he did play 33 minutes last game after Kleber got injured. Kleber only played 7 minutes before he got injured last game, so if Porzingis sits, it's pretty possible that we get 30, 32 minutes from Dwight Powell. Now, the matchup against Miami is not good. The matchup against Bam Adebayo, if Bam were to play, is not good for Powell. But at 4K, if he plays 30 minutes, he's going to project as a really good value play. So he would probably be my favorite play from Dallas behind Luka if Porzingis were to get ruled out. But that's probably it from this Dallas team. We can move on to the next game, talk about Sacramento and Utah. So for Sacramento here, not the best spot here on the road against the Jazz. So a little bit of blowout potential in this game. The Utah is a pretty slow-paced team. They've always been a pretty slow-paced team. They've always been pretty good defensively as well. They're just not a good matchup. So really, there's nothing that stands out to me from Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox is going to be super, super low-owned on this slate. He's been terrible this season. He's yet to put up, more than 46 DK points. At 8,600, he's not going to really project that well for his salary. So if you want to play him in tournaments as just a super low-owned contrarian option, fine. But I don't have much confidence in Fox. I'm not going to pay $7,400 for Harrison Barnes. I know he's had some good games this year, but you're overpaying for Harrison Barnes at this point. Not much interest in him. Richaun Holmes, I think, is going to have to play as many minutes as he can just because they're going to need his size against Rudy Gobert. But there's definitely, foul trouble concern for Richaun Holmes. He is someone that does kind of struggle with foul trouble, but he's a really productive player when he's on the floor. He's a fantasy point-per-minute player. He's probably going to play 32 minutes if, he can stay out of foul trouble and if the game stays close. He would probably be my favorite play from Sacramento if I had to play anyone on this team. But overall, the Kings are just not the team I'm really, really thrilled to roster today. And on the Utah side, Utah's kind of the same thing. This Utah team, when they're fully healthy, I rarely play these guys. Rarely do I jam in Donovan Mitchell. Rarely do I pay up at center for Rudy Gobert. Now, on a 5-game slate where we don't have nearly as many options, are these guys in play? Absolutely. If you're playing a lot of lineups, you could definitely get exposure to Mitchell and Gobert. But for me, I tend to just play one lineup in NBA. I don't think I'm going to have any Jazz guys in my one lineup. Donovan Mitchell at 8,800, another guy that just hasn't been great this year. He really hasn't been worth rostering at this price point. He hasn't really justified to be worth rostering at this price point, I should say. Could Donovan Mitchell put up 50 DK points against the Kings? He absolutely could, but there's probably other pay-up options I would rather get to. I think I'd rather play Jimmy Butler just straight up over Donovan Mitchell. Rudy Gobert has been amazing this season. He's been rebounding a ton. He's averaged over 17 rebounds per game. It's a good matchup against Sacramento. I guess Gobert you could go to as well. Between Gobert and Bam Adebayo, I might give an edge to Bam if Bam plays, but that would definitely be close. For me, though, I think, I'm probably going to be paying down at center for a guy like Bobby Portis, especially if we can expect him to play 23, 24 minutes. But Gobert and Mitchell are good tournament plays. Conley, Clarkson, Bogdanovich, Ingles, none of them look great to me. They all feel priced about right, if not a little bit overpriced. Maybe Conley at 6K you could go to, but he really hasn't been worth rostering at this price point. He's yet to put up over 30 DraftKings points this season. I don't want to look into the game log too much because we know Conley does have upside, but it's also worth noting that he has yet to play over 30 minutes this season, or 31 minutes. They've definitely been kind of keeping his minutes somewhat low. They really haven't been playing Conley massive minutes to start the year, so that does kind of hurt his upside and his ceiling. And at 6K, I'm probably just going to avoid him. So, yeah, we can go ahead and talk about the last two games of the night. First off, Pelicans and Suns. So, on the Pelicans today, really hard to break this team down right now because we're going to need some news on Brandon Ingram and Devontae Graham. Right now, as of Monday night, both Brandon Ingram and Devontae Graham are questionable. I'm just going to assume both play. If both guys play, there's not too much I love from the Pelicans except J-Val. J-Val I've been playing like all season so far. I feel like I've played J-Val almost every slate, and he's just been smashing. I mean, he's been amazing so far this year for the Pelicans, averaging over 46 DK points a game. He's played at least 32 minutes or at least 30 minutes in every single game this season, at least 32 minutes in every game but one. It's very likely we get 33, 35 minutes from Joval, and we know Joval is a super productive player when he's on the floor, just dating back to when he was with the Grizzlies, when he was with the Raptors. Whenever Joval got minutes, he would smash, and he's been playing massive minutes for the Pelicans this season, so even at 8,500, I think Joval is still a very good pay-up option at center, and honestly, I would definitely take Joval over Rudy Gobert, so if I'm going to pay up at center, Joval is probably my favorite option overall, definitely my favorite play from this Pelicans team. But in a scenario where we get maybe Brandon Ingram and Devontae Graham both ruled out, then we can start to look to some of these other Pelicans. Guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker would become a really good play if there's no Ingram and Graham. Josh Hart would get some increased opportunity. He played 30 minutes last game after being on a minutes limit the game before that. So I would expect Hart plays big minutes if Ingram and Graham are both out. And then they probably would start a guy like Tomas Satoransky. Tomas Satoransky really hasn't played much this season with the Pelicans, but in a scenario where Devontae Graham gets ruled out, he would probably be the guy that would benefit and the guy that would move into the starting lineup. Now, they could do a lot of stuff, like they could start NAW at point guard, but I would expect Satoransky would probably start, and at the stone minimum 3K, yeah, Satoransky would be a top value play today if he winds up starting for Devontae Graham. So we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, it's a late game, which sucks, but there's there's 3 late games tonight. You got one game starting at 7, one game at 7:30, and then you got a 9 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, and a 10:30. So even if we get this news after lock, you should still have a lot of ways you can swap around with your lineup, assuming you don't go too heavy on the first games, which obviously the first games, the Milwaukee game, there's a lot to like there. There will be a lot to like on Miami if Bam gets ruled out. But I would definitely want to leave some opportunities to swap in a scenario where Graham and Ingram both get ruled out, because then there's going to be a lot of good plays on the Pelicans. J-Val, NAW, Hart, Satoransky, even like a Herbert Jones, Najee Marshall, these guys would be playable too if we get a scenario where, Ingram and Graham are both out. So that's just kind of my quick thoughts on the Pelicans. We can move on to the other side, though, and talk about the Suns. Another team dealing with an injury today. DeAndre Ayton is currently questionable with a leg injury. DeAndre Ayton's one of these guys that really, I feel like he never misses games. So I don't know who would start in place of DeAndre Ayton. I would assume it would probably be JaVale McGee. Last game, JaVale McGee played 18 minutes. He's kind of just been the backup center all season so far behind Ayton. Basically, any minutes that Ayton hasn't played, any minutes that Ayton hasn't played, McGee has played those minutes. So if DeAndre Ayton were to get ruled out, I'd assume that JaVale McGee would start. And if you've been playing DFS for these last few years, you know that JaVale McGee, when he gets minutes, this guy is super, super productive. Obviously, he's never been someone that has played massive minutes, but there were some times last year with Cleveland whenever Andre Drummond would sit where JaVale would get like 25 minutes and he would smash. Even when he was with the Lakers and he would only play like 12 minutes a night, he would still put up like 15 Draftkings points in those 12 minutes. He's a really productive player when he's on the floor. If he were to start at 3,400, I'd assume he would get at least like 20 minutes. I don't think McGee's not going to play like 35 minutes. He's just not that kind of guy. But I think if he were to start in place of Ayton, he would definitely get at least like 18 to 20 minutes. And at 3,400, JaVale McGee would for sure be a strong value play. And he would be my favorite play overall from this Phoenix team if Ayton were to sit. Devin Booker and Chris Paul, I really haven't played at all this season. I think in a good matchup against the Pelicans, these guys are decent tournament plays. We started to see a little bit of a ceiling lately from Devin Booker. He kind of started off the year really slow, but the last 2 games against Sacramento and Cleveland looked really good, 53, 43 DK points. Chris Paul's been consistent this year. He's had a couple big games against the Lakers, 53 DK points against Cleveland, 43 DK points. Against the Pelicans, again, a good matchup against a fast-paced Pelicans team. Chris Paul is for sure a tournament option. I don't think there's going to be any core plays for me from Phoenix unless Ayton gets ruled out. Then McGee would probably become a top option. But there's definitely tournament plays. Booker, CP3, And then even I think like without Ayton, you would probably see a little bit more opportunity for Mikal Bridges, a little bit more opportunity for Jay Crowder. I don't think those guys would be like core plays or anything, but they would definitely be at least playable in a scenario where Ayton does wind up sitting. But that's probably it for the rest of the Suns. Maybe if Ayton were to sit, they could play more small ball. So maybe you would see like some more minutes for Cam Johnson. I think he'd be like a solid tournament play. He would probably come in at very, very low ownership. You could go there at 3,300, but I would only go there if Ayton sits. Frank Kaminsky might get more run. I guess they could start Frank Kaminsky, but again, so far this year, JaVale McGee's been the backup center behind Ayton, so I would assume McGee would be the guy that benefits if Ayton sits. So yeah, guys, we'll talk about the last game of the night real quick before we end the video. We got the Rockets and the Lakers playing once again. These teams just played a couple days ago, and they're playing again Tuesday night. So looking at Houston at the top with Christian Wood, 8,300. On this slate, I think Christian Wood will be very low owned. I would expect Gobert, J-Val, even Bam if he plays. I would expect all those guys get more ownership than Christian Wood. Christian Wood this season has had one massive game against OKC, and then ever since then, he's just not been great. But we know Christian Wood still has a big-time upside. He didn't do that well when these teams played a couple days ago, but that doesn't mean anything for today. Christian Wood could put up 50 Draftkings points today, and nobody would be surprised. I don't think I'm going to play Christian Wood, but he's definitely playable. He has upside, obviously. Same could be said for Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr. has been really inconsistent this year, but we know, him, Christian Wood, Jalen Green, these guys are going to play big minutes as long as it's a close game. Now, this Rockets team is terrible. They're going to get blown out a lot this year, but at least, when they did play the Lakers, they were able to keep the game close enough to where you got full minutes from KPJ. He put up 31 DK points in 36 minutes. The Lakers have been playing at a really fast pace this year. The Rockets have been playing at the fastest pace in the league so far this season. These are actually the top two teams in pace so far this season. The Rockets are playing at the fastest pace in the league, and the Lakers second fastest pace. So this should be a very, very high scoring game. I know it wasn't last time they played, but these are two very fast paced teams. Kevin Porter Jr. as a tournament option, I think makes some sense. Jalen Green should be super low owned. He's not been great this year. He's really only had one good game this season, but he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to play the minutes as long as it's a close game. Don't mind him, but he's not like a priority or anything. Jayshawn Tate's currently questionable, so this will be something to monitor. Jayshawn Tate normally, when he's healthy, plays relatively decent minutes. Lately, his minutes have kind of been trending down, but if he were to be out, there probably would be more minutes available for guys like Eric Gordon. Maybe like a David Nwaba would start. Eric Gordon's 4,900. If he were to start in place of Jayshawn Tate, I think he would be a pretty decent value play at 4,900. Or David Nwaba, if he were to start, only 3,100. We could look to David Nwaba as a value play. So that's more news we're going to have to keep an eye on in these late night games. And then Daniel Tice is questionable as well. I don't know if Daniel Tice being out really changes too much, just because Daniel Tice doesn't play a ton of minutes, but there would probably be more minutes to go around in the front court. Maybe Sengun gets more minutes. It probably would just be like, it would really just benefit some of these other guys like David Nwaba, Eric Gordon, like all these wings would probably they could run different lineups and just give some of these guys more minutes too. But yeah, definitely going to have to keep an eye on the Jayshawn Tate news, because if he does sit, I think there would be more minutes available for Eric Gordon and David Nwaba, and depending on who were to start there would be some value from this Houston team if we were to get one of those guys in the starting lineup, I would think. But that's probably it from Houston. Now on the Lakers side, look, it's a really good matchup against Houston. Houston's terrible defensively. They're playing at the fastest pace in the league. But where they're priced at, LeBron, AD, Westbrook, they all are like secondary options for me. On this slate, I prefer Luka. I prefer Giannis. I probably would prefer like Jimmy Butler as well over these guys. It's just going to be tough to predict when you get a massive game from these guys. Like when they're all healthy. Last game LeBron played 35 minutes, had 44 DK points. Westbrook played 35 minutes, had 45 DK points. AD played 33 minutes, had 39 DK points. Like none of them really did well for their salaries. I feel like Westbrook and AD kind of got priced up a little bit from when LeBron was out, and now that LeBron's back, like I really don't want to pay these price tags for these guys. LeBron's questionable, but I'm assuming he plays today. I think he actually tweeted out earlier today that he's ready to play for tomorrow. So I think LeBron plays today. So if he's playing, I'm just not going to be on like any of the top tier Lakers. And then like the secondary Lakers guys, Melo, Kent Bazemore, like I'm not going to play these guys either. Melo can randomly pop out for ceiling games. He had a ceiling game last game against Houston. He was making a lot of shots. Melo always can get hot and put up a big game, but at 5,300, he's not someone I'm really running to roster. Kent Bazemore, going to get minutes, but I'm not really playing him. I don't have much interest in him at 4,200. I definitely would rather be playing these Bucks guys over Kent Bazemore. So, yeah, really the Lakers are just not a team I'm that interested in today. Not too much stands out here. So I think that kind of does it for the Lakers guys, and I think that does it for Tuesday's 5-game slate. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, and check out the sponsor of the video, guys, PrizePicks. Again, if you have not checked out PrizePicks yet, you want to see what they have to offer. They're more of a player prop based site. You're just picking the over or the under on the projections they have listed. You can check out their board for Tuesday night's game. You can see all the projections they have, and very simple. If you see some projections you like, you just take the over or the under, and you can win up to 10x your money on PrizePicks. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks and win up to 10 extra money. So check them out, guys. Be sure if you do sign up for PrizePicks, you use promo code NOAH, and they will match your first deposit up to $100 when you do sign up with my code. But yeah, guys, best of luck tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. We will see you in the next one. Good luck, guys. Peace.